NASCAR, since we're in a delay, the race is weather delayed right now, and big happenings going on in pro wrestling with The Undertaker today announcing his retirement from wrestling, with the caveat that if Vince McMahon, you know, asks him to come back, then of course he definitely will. So just, I think that's interesting that people will want to know, I guess, what is going on as far as with him. We know that Vince McMahon, next time he needs him for Saudi Arabia, definitely will be using him. The other big happening that's going on, obviously, in pro wrestling today is the fact that the speaking out movement is going on. That hit us approximately about 48 hours ago. Um, but I wanted to start off with some NASCAR talk, talking about them being at Talladega. Most of you know that I write for AmericanBettingExperts.com, and I covered the race this week and wanted to make sure that all of you guys knew that you can bet on this race here in West Virginia and in 5 other states across the nation, at DraftKings, BetMGM, and FanDuel. And wanted to talk a little bit about what you guys' view was. Who did you guys think would win today at Talladega? I know it's kind of a crapshoot who will win and what will go on at Talladega. We never know when the big one's going to actually hit and take out 20, 30 cars in a race, and who knows how many will be running at the end. Of course, we have seen before that if the big one hits early enough, then sometimes they can get cars back out there. But right now, we're trying to stay out of this. A little scared with, not knowing what's going to happen as far as them not getting to practice, them not even getting to qualify. I mean, qualifying is set now by luck of the draw. So, obviously it is, a little hard to get a feel for your car, to get the setup correct, and to make sure that you're driving a car almost that's safe. And I think that's what we've got to worry about is, are the cars actually safe out there going 200 miles an hour with no practice laps? I don't know if you guys saw, NASCAR said that a rookie driver who had never been on Talladega Speedway this at all, he had never raced there at all. He had never did one lap around there. They said that he cannot race. They were just way, 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 way too worried about what was going on and what actually was going to go down and happen. And kind of felt sorry for him, but I understand that they, have to protect who's out there. And so you never know what's going to happen and things. But in my article, I talked a lot about how the restrictor plates, different drivers feel different ways on them, and how it restricts the airflow and the fuel that goes into the engine, and it actually slows the cars down. But what it also does is it slows them all down to almost the same speed. And due to that, they race in the packs, which causes the wrecks to happen. And we're always worried. You can't help but be worried about what's going on and what actually is going to happen. Um, you never know, who is accidentally going to screw up. Somebody like Ricky Stenhouse. I like him. Um, he is an interesting character and everything, but I mean, he has really had some bad luck here recently, and I think that's what has gotten to me a little bit is you never know what's going to go on with him, and so you just I almost want people that I want to win to stay away from Ricky Stenhouse. I mean, you definitely don't want them being around him because you never know when he's actually going to do something, when he's going to mess up, and what actually is going to happen. And so, for those of you who didn't get a chance to read um, my article on AmericanBettingExperts.com, I talked about how I felt that Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano were probably the favorites to win. I know that there were a lot of experts. I was looking at them on the internet this morning, were picking and really high on Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney. And I don't know. Fords have won, gosh, I believe it's four out of the last five Talladega, and they won like fall races at Talladega. And so with Chase driving a Chevy, I just don't know that he can pull it out. I don't know that that's something that he can actually do. As far as Ryan Blaney, I mean, I think we're all waiting for him to break out, and maybe this will be his breakout. I believe he finished fourth at Bristol, and everybody thought, oh, here he comes, but he just hasn't did it yet, and so a little nervous about that. So I was picking Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. They're on the same team. I know NASCAR is saying they shouldn't be able to draft as much, if at all, during this race due to some race modifications that they've made. But with them being on the same team, they can use each other's setups, share information, things like that. And those two have been two of the biggest competitors. Now, as far as a lot of people want to say, well, what about Martin Truex? What about Kevin Harvick? Martin Truex just doesn't do well at Talladega. I mean, that's all there is to it. He just doesn't do well at Talladega. I don't know what his main issue is, but he definitely. Now, Kevin Harvick, could he pull it off and get lucky? Yes, of course. But we all kind of know Kevin has a tendency to get caught up in the wreck. Whether it's the big one of the race or just a wreck at Talladega, he just has bad luck there. And I don't know whether it's the Talladega curse that, I wrote about in my article or not, but it's definitely an issue. It's definitely, a factor that could be going on. Now, as far as a dark horse, I picked Eric Amarola. I know that a lot of people out there are very high on Tyler Reddick. Now, I picked him as my dark horse last week, but with him not having a lot of experience at Talladega, I just didn't think that he would have that good of a run. I wasn't sure exactly what he would do, how he would be able to do it, and everything. So I was a little nervous about choosing Tyler Reddick, and could he pull it off? But I was fairly sure that Eric Amarola could. He's been running pretty good here recently. The two bonus bets, of course, that I told everybody to pick was that a Ford would win the race and go ahead and pick a Penske driver. Of course, with me choosing Brad and Joey as my two top picks, that was a no-brainer to me, was to pick Ford and Penske also. Now, of course, if you're going to go with Chase Elliott, then you need to choose Chevy and Hendrick. But what I would do if I was going to bet Chase Elliott is then I would throw a couple dollars down on Hendrick on Penske and Ford just to make my money back in case Chase Elliott did not win. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about the speaking out movement that's been going on in pro wrestling here the last, 48 hours or so. I really got into it, I guess it was about 12 hours in, and then read a lot of different women's stories and some men last night. It's very interesting and a little intriguing that a lot of them are similar. Whether they were with the British wrestlers, American wrestlers, or they happened in Japan, they were done in a similar way. And their stories, I guess, rang true to me, being an ex CPS investigator, a child protective service investigator, and then a person who trained people to do forensic interviews for sexual abuse and sexual assault. A lot of their stories were similar to what I heard all of those years. The grooming process that goes on, a lot of the manipulation tactics, and the gaslighting that goes on. I felt that was really, really unusual, and that, like I said, it was just interesting to read all of the women's stories be similar. And whether it happened 30, 40 years ago, as some of them were talking with some of the older wrestlers, or it was happening, last year or 6 months ago. Um, Surprised me with some of the names that came out. But then when you dig into it, not sure whether they gave us enough information to make sure that it could stand up. Others gave us a tremendous amount of information, and I mean, it was like you could pinpoint exactly what was going on, and some of them even gave dates, times. They gave people that could verify their story. Just amazing. There are a lot of them now that are going to the police. Uh, we've obviously had some firings already go on. WWE has already let gentleman Jack Gallagher be released. Not sure that he was such a gentleman after reading some of his stories. Um, they're suspending, possibly taking some action against Jordan Devlin with NXT UK. He has already been suspended from a British wrestling outfit that he works with a lot, along with a member of his tag team, and they have had to give up their belts over there. We have seen some promoters get fired, but I think the big one that I don't know whether it shocked a lot of people, it shocked me, was Dave LaGreca. Um, at NWA. Just him being the vice president, him being such a prominent person in that organization, being behind that organization. I think that was very surprising to see them, part ways, and kind of leaves NWA hanging. What are they going to do? Where are they going to go from here? Who is going to replace him? Um, and then there were a lot of bullying allegations that came out. And I think that is also what surprised me was originally, like I said, I started reading about 12 hours in when it started breaking. Um, I thought that hashtag speaking out was going to be mostly sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape, grooming, things like that. But it quickly turned into people that were making racial comments, bullying, targeting different people, harassing different people. Um, we saw a lot of social media, such as Twitter and DMs and things like that, sexual messages being sent. But I think the thing that I was shocked the most about was the bullying that was going on social media with the hashtag speaking out moment. Just unbelievable. Now, of course, a lot of people wanted to reiterate some of the stories that have been out for years. There was one poster that kept wanting to bring up Randy Orton over and over and over with the story of how, he a lot of times welcomed new writers to a wrestling beat by shaking his hand. That story has been out for numerous years. And so, not sure that that was anything new. Um, Not sure that it even needed to be brought up in this movement with what so many people were talking about. Um, and then, of course, the Tessa Blanchard stuff got brought up again from back in January. So, I don't know whether those were people just wanting to take part and were reiterating stories that they had heard over and over and kind of wanted to get involved. But I couldn't believe it. You're reading Evil Uno from AEW talking about sexual abuse from the time he was 14 years old by a priest that taught him wrestling at that young of age. And people are wanting to throw past stories out there. So it, I think that was what got me a little bit was here people are truly opening up and showing, being vulnerable, I guess is a better way to say it. And then people are trying to get their name in the spotlight by telling stories that, have long been out there. So, I don't know where this is going to go. I made a comment to someone, I guess it was yesterday evening, um, that I thought this might probably end up rocking the wrestling universe as much as the Chris Benoit story ended up rocking the wrestling universe. Because I think when Chris Benoit that fateful weekend chose to do what he did, I don't think it just was those couple days. It changed the wrestling universe for months, years afterwards. And I think hashtag speaking out has the capabilities of doing the same exact thing, just changing the wrestling world out there, of, what can happen and what precautions are they going to put in. I think I saw a lot of people calling for there to be a wrestling union. Granted, I would love for the wrestlers, number one, to become employees, but number two, to get unionized. But honestly, I just don't see it happening, especially in the next 6 months or so. However, I would like to see some promoters, some promotions, AEW, I'm calling your name, WWE, I'm calling your name, put out there, we're going to have separate changing facilities for the men and women. We're going to make sure that they're not riding together. We're going to, unless, it's consensual. We're going to make sure that we take care of them. We're going to make sure that they're not having to share a room. We're not going to put them in situations where they can be walked in on, or that someone can take their stuff and hold it hostage, or do things to their stuff if they don't do what a person wants them to do. Um, they just shouldn't have to put up with stuff like this, no matter who they are, men, women, whoever. Because, like I said, I mean, you had Evil Uno come out, obviously, who was a male, saying that he had been sexually abused. But a lot of times it was mostly women that are coming out. Um, a lot of women saying, "I want to tell you a little bit, but I don't feel safe enough to name names." Well, I hope that those promoters and those talents are going to those women and saying, "How can we help you? How can we protect you?" Um, I wish that there would be some promotions that would go out there and offer. I know AEW is offering insurance. Hopefully, anyone in AEW could get mental health counseling, but for those who don't offer their people um, insurance, that they provide some kind of mental health or traumatic therapy for them, where they have someone that they can trust and talk to. Well, that kind of brings me down. But I think the thing that I don't know what to feel about is, the next topic that I would just kind of shortly wanted to bring up was the announcement of The Undertaker retiring. Um, I want to say that that brings me down, but it really doesn't. I was really disappointed in his match with Bill Goldberg. And I know, I don't care to say it, that a lot of it was Goldberg's fault. And I'm glad that he came back and The Undertaker redeemed himself. So I am happy for him that he is retiring. Not happy for all of the, this generation, my generation, to not get to see him anymore. I hope that WWE continues to allow him to be involved, continues to allow him to be around to train future superstars. But I hope we get to see him. I hope that they ask him to do interviews every now and then for the network, or that they get to follow him around for the network when he comes backstage or something like that, that they keep in contact with him. I hope that he doesn't just disappear and go away. But I am happy for him. I am not the least bit upset about him doing that. I know I saw a lot of fans on the internet that were devastated. Well, eventually it has to happen, and I think we all have to realize that we do not want to see him be in the ring, get injured, or have something happen to him, And so I support his decision teetotally. But the last thing that I had on my agenda that I really wanted to talk about was July 1st. July 1st obviously is um, Canadian Day, Canada Day, and it has been announced that Martha Hart is going to release a new Owen Hart t-shirt on ProWrestlingTees.com, and all the proceeds of the sale of that shirt that is going to be released on July 1st will go to the Owen Hart Foundation. And any of you who watched The Dark Side of the Ring or listened to Talk is Jericho, you know that the Owen Hart Foundation does a lot of good work with single mothers with kids and really helps them out and everything. So I hope that all of you that followed Owen Hart and have the wherewithal that you can purchase a shirt do and know that that's going to a excellent foundation. So I wanted to make sure that I ended on a good note and wanted to kind of put that out there in case any of you didn't know. Does anyone have any topics that they want to talk about or any questions they want to ask or anything like that? Any questions, comments, problems, or protests, as I say on all of my podcasts. For those of you who do not realize, you can, uh, I want to make sure that you guys know that Wrestling Overtime is my podcast, but I have two other ones. I have WV Overtime, which is West Virginia Overtime, where we talk a lot of West Virginia high school sports, and we talk coaching techniques, motivations, um, how to get through and create culture and things like that. And also have another podcast, which is Paranormal Review. And feel free to follow all of those and subscribe to them and get the latest updates. Hoping that the Talladega race will go on and that we will get to see a race here sooner or later. And if so, then hopefully we'll get to come back and talk to you guys about the race afterwards. What happened? Did our bets pay off? Remember, we are betting for Brad Kowalski, Joey Logano, and then our dark horse bet is going to be Eric Amarola. And then our bonus bets are going to be uh, Ford, a Ford car winning the race, and a Penske car winning the race. So hopefully you guys can win some money betting on those bets. And I look forward to, like I said, talking to you guys after the race. If not, then maybe we'll get on later tonight and we'll have some updates in the pro wrestling world about what's going on or anything. Feel free to follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, on try to think YouTube or any of the sites, and make sure that you make comments on anything that you would like for me to go live about. I want to keep you guys as up to date as possible, and keep you guys informed about what's going on and everything. So make sure that you share this episode, and that you tell everyone that they need to subscribe, and so that they'll know when I'm going live next. But I will talk to you guys soon.